Okay, it started.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Today I'd like to call to order the meeting of West Haven's Subcommittee of the MARB. Today it's March 30th and the time is 10:05. We do have a quorum, so we can get started. The recording has been started, and if we have any guests that are on the phone, Mark, I'm not sure if you are on the phone or not, and if you have trouble, but I have muted everybody. So if you need to come off mute, it would be *6. We do have a new board member that will be joining us, and I think that I'll leave that to Secretary Beckham to bring up at the full MARB meeting when we meet in April. But Sue Weisselberg will be joining us. She was a prior undersecretary at OPM and had since retired, and she has been selected to, she's going to join the West Haven committee and as well as the full MARB. So that is to come. The first item on Ms. Cormier, do you have any opening remarks? My co-chair.
I do not, but thank you for asking.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you everybody for being here today. And let's move on to the first item on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes of March the 2nd. Those minutes have been included in your packet and hope everybody had an opportunity to review them. And I am looking for a motion for approval.
I will, I'll second.
Oh, thank you, Tom. You're a second. Who was, I'm sorry, I didn't hear who took the first motion.
That was me.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
That's what happens when your head is down. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Any discussion? All right. I hear none. Then all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. Any opposed or abstentions? All right, the motion carries. Thank you. The minutes have been approved. All right, we'll move on to the next item of discussion for review and possible action. I think that we're new to the game on possible action. I'm going to hold 1 minute. Mr. White is joining us. Well, good morning, Mr. White. How are you? Bob? Can't hear me?
Mute, Bob.
Nope, you're on mute, Bob.
It's okay.
No, I didn't do that on purpose. There you are.
You will later, but okay.
I hope not. I hope not. I would like a kind day today. Please. All right. I was just mentioning that and wanted to hold because Bob, I saw that you were arriving. So we're going to move on to agenda item number 3, and that is going to be review, discussion, and possible action of the mayor's FY24 recommended budget. And the mayor's budget is been distributed in all the meeting materials for all of us, and you're going to notice some quick highlights on it is that the general fund budget is $173.4 million, representing 3% of an increase over the adopted budget from 23. The grants, state grants, account for about 32.6% of the city's budget, and with the same percentage as it was in the prior year. The tax collection remains at the same level at 62.68, and there was no significant grand list growth over that last year. I'm going to ask the mayor or David Taylor to please walk us all through the FY24 proposed budget that you've provided.
Well, I'm just going to say good morning to everyone. And yes, David and I have been working on this budget for some time. It's a balanced budget. And again, it does have an increase of 0.97 mil at this point in time. Obviously, it hasn't been approved yet, so that could definitely change one way or another. And David has been a huge help and asset to our city. And so I'm going to let him take it from there. But it's been a pleasure working on this budget with him.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good morning. Before I run into that, just you guys approved the bans last time, and I just wanted to let you all know that that closed earlier this week. So that's all behind us. So, just a few comments. You know, this budget represents an investment in people, and we're adding 13 positions to increase public safety and health. Fiscal controls, quality of life, and revenue generation. If I were to categorize the reasons for those ads, we are noting a reduction in debt service with bonding every year over the 5-year plan. And I want to bring in comments about the 5-year plan as we go forward, because I know that's very important for us to understand the current year plan. And the other thing is that we have developed our plans to be in line with the mill rate increases that we talked about this time last year. And we are growing our general fund as a percent of total expenditures from 5% in 23, and we're pushing this over 7% in 24, which continues through the plan. Our goals remain the same in this plan, and that would be to build the general fund balance with a target of getting to GFOA levels within a reasonable future. Enhance fiscal control and accountability. Just to look back just for a moment, we did implement Munis PO purchase order block to prevent people from requesting purchase orders that were in excess of budget. This week, we are very happy to announce that we've hired an HR professional. And once she is online, we will begin to segregate those duties that we've been trying to segregate for over a year regarding payroll and HR functions such as changing people's salaries, onboarding, offboarding. So within 6 months, we believe, we'll be there. I think it'll be quicker than that. But and then over the next 6 months, we will implement a no PO, no payment policy by contacting vendors, demanding that they have a valid PO number on any of their invoices, and then working with our staff so that they understand that POs are important and there's a good reason for them, and that they need to be issued before they ask anybody to perform a service or to sell us something. We also are working on mitigation measures to stem off cost increases that are in our future through revenue enhancement and cost saving. We're happy to announce that parking monetization, major project that we undertook, some bids and all, and went through quite a process, will be implemented in time for the summer beach season. There is basically no cost to us. The company that will be doing it will be getting paid through the parking that's collected. There's a lot of others, and if you as we go through this, they're on page 6 of the overview that I wrote for the 5-year plan. We have a new goal, and that was brought up during the audit, and that is, unbeknownst to me, our internal service funds are sorely funded. And I was disappointed to find that out, but anyway, we are seeking to build and maintain our internal service funds at a current ratio of 1.0, and so there is some reflection of that in the 5-year plan that's been presented. We do have some challenges. And as we all know, we've been through some tough economic times, and in fact, our pensions were devalued over 20 million in fiscal 22. So this makes our actuarial determined funding increase $6 million over the remaining 4 years of the plan. Inflation is also increased about 0.3%. This has about a $500,000 impact per year. Same challenges existed in the previous plan continue to exist. As ARPA funds run out, the retention increases that we gave our police department will start to have to be funded through taxes. And that'll be $1.2 million, and that hits in fiscal 25. Also in fiscal 25, Board of Education is going to need increased funding of about $1.5 million per year through fiscal 28. The current 5-year plan, I mentioned the Internal Service Fund earlier, includes a $2.6 million funding of that plan. And another issue is there are massive projects for WPCA. When you get back to the capital pages, you'll see over $100 million of funding that'll be required over the next 3 years. We have planned for a Clean Water Fund grant of 20%, which involves an 80% loan in our plans. But we're pursuing a FEMA grant, which would cover 75%. That would definitely be a much better scenario for our sewer. The plan anticipates mill rate increases in line with the prior plan. And the general fund balance is increased by $1.5 million over the 5-year plan. Due to the challenges that I've outlined, the anticipated result of a general fund balance coming in above 8% in fiscal 28 is reduced to something just under 7.5%. And our goal of hitting 12 to 15% by 2031 is stretched to 2033. So that's sort of an overview. I'm not sure how much you need me to walk you through the plan. You've had it for a week. Happy to entertain questions and any advice that you have for us as we move forward.
I will ask the members if they have any questions before I ask mine. Mr. White. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not sure where to start. First of all, thank you very much for the overview. Yeah, but by the way, I think we got this on Tuesday. But in any event, I do notice, and thank you for showing the mill rate increase that includes the fire districts. And I got that for 24, you're going to be about 46.5 mills as to the both. Where does that rank West Haven? It's getting, I remember at one point, anything over 40 was considered high, over 50 was absurd. What have you been able to benchmark that?
I'm sorry. No, I have not. I would mention that we were over 45 this year, so it's really not that much of a change. It's a fair point. I'll take a look into that.
Yeah, I mean it's not. I mean you may have been in trouble, but you're a new player, but welcome to the mess. But this has been a subject of conversation before. And I'm pleased that you've got a benchmark with GFOA. Is there any benchmarks with CCM or anybody else as to I don't want to say line items, but cost of certain functions? For folks of your size, it just seems that, I can't quite tell, maybe Whittlesey can, whether there are costs that are embedded that really shouldn't be there. For example, getting your fund balance to 12 to 15% over 10 years, that's difficult. And the Internal Service Fund, to get it up 1-to-1 in 15 years, I'll just say right now, I think that's unacceptable. So how you are able to get that without, you know, without raising taxes even more, it's difficult. Because my understanding is the average home in West Haven is about 280,000, which would be under existing rates about $9,100 a year, and going to 10.4 in 28. That's a lot. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but I've got too many notes. You've predicated inflation at 3%. Is that, do you think that's reasonable? I can't hear you.
Sorry, I muted myself. I must not have spoken clearly. It's an increase from 2.0 in the previous projection to 2.3 in this one, which is costing us about $500,000 a year.
That's the inflation. Okay, no, I just was wondering if it was realistic, because what's inflation running now? I read scary things in the newspaper.
Yeah, so as with last year, I didn't just pick a number out of the year. I actually went and researched, you know, what are some of the people who do this for a living saying about the future, and it's based on the consumer pricing. I can't remember the item stands for at this moment, but if you look on page 4 of the plan assumptions, you'll see a chart which is that we found online. It's USDA, U.S. inflation long-term forecast, and this is what I use to project.
Okay, no, I saw that, and I was sort of surprised, but I'll leave that to you and the others. I have some more questions, but I'm going to leave. I'll defer to my colleagues at this point.
Thank you for sharing the floor. Anybody else? You kept your hand up. Are you waiting for the next round?
If there's no one else, go ahead. If there's
I do.
No
Thank
one
you.
else, I've got a whole bunch. Go ahead. Tom's got his hand up. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Tom. I'll let you go.
Okay, I've got a bunch of questions. I'm not really quite sure where to start. Most of them are kind of you know, smaller issues, but I do want to kind of put them out there. And some of the bigger issues I haven't. I guess my really first question for you, Kimberly, is what is our timeline in terms of when we need to approve the budget and when we need to approve the 5-year plan? Because you had put on here that there was possible action. I'm not sure I'm ready to vote on anything today, but it sounds like
Understand.
is the budget still, the budget has not been adopted by the city council, is that correct?
That's correct. It goes all the way to the first Thursday in May. They are actually going to have a public hearing on April the 3rd, this coming Monday, for the public. David and I will present, and then the public will get to speak, and then they will have budget hearings all the way through and up to and including the first Thursday in May. So that's their timeline.
Okay, so would we normally, Kimberly, expect then we would not actually, the full board would not act on the budget and the 5-year plan until after the city council has acted, correct? Okay, so we do have a little bit of time. I mean, obviously not a lot of time, but.
Yeah, we usually flushed through this, and I put possible action. I anticipated that there wouldn't be, but I did not want to make any assumptions that I should not have made.
Okay. So on the revenue side, just a few issues to point out or to ask for further clarification on here. In some areas, I think, potentially you may actually still be conservative in your assumptions, but I'd like a little more detail on your, one item was the interest income or investment income assumption, and how that was derived. Did you put together sort of a month by month projection based on cash flows and based on your assumed interest income? I know there's a lot of moving parts here because of the fact that for the current year, you had extra money from ARPA funds that had not yet been spent, and those will obviously be drawn down over the coming next fiscal year. Interest rates, at this point have continued to move up. It's, there's quite a bit of speculation about whether or not we're going to be in a recession by next year, and potentially the Federal Reserve could start to bring interest rates down, although that, is really unknown at this point. So I'm really interested in hearing what your assumptions were in developing that interest income projection, David.
It was probably a lot simpler than, unfortunately, and I'm happy to go back and look at it. I do believe it is quite conservative. I did not want to overstate that and, leave the city dry on funds. I do believe that over the next year, we will be trimming down the amount of money that we have as we pay for the ARPA projects. I was anticipating when I did this projection that we'd have, on the average through the year, half the money that we do now have. And so it was pretty simple calculation. I do think, that we have a chance of beating that number. I don't think it's $1 million.
Yeah. So I guess what I would like to see from you, and I realize you've got 100 things on your plate, but I'd like to see really a monthly cash flow, and then apply, using that cash flow forecast, go ahead and make some projection based on, assuming interest rates stay constant. And then if we want to look at it further, we could assume changes in interest rates over that time period. But I do think it would be helpful to have a real calculation of interest income for next year, because you do have so many moving parts. I mean, I suspect just in looking at the number, there's a good chance that when you do that exercise, you may actually come up with a higher number than you're showing, although we don't really know until you've done the cash flow and run the numbers. But I think that's one thing I'd like to see before we actually vote on a budget is an actual calculation of a projected interest income.
Yeah, so basically I just have to apply interest rates to the cash flow that I have. I mean, we'll do that. And
Okay, so that addresses that issue. Now, one of the other items that I've got some concern you potentially could be overstating your recording legal instrument fees, and that's basically from revenue derived from sale of property that comes in through the town clerk's office. And I'm just concerned here, you've got a number, I guess you're projecting current year 1,650,000. Year to date, you're at through January, you're at 977,000. Last year you had almost 1.8 million. Next year you're projecting 1,555,000. Now I'm just concerned looking at last year's actual and knowing that real estate was really active last year, real estate sales. Now, obviously, since then, interest rates have gone up a lot, mortgage rates have gone up a lot. My understanding is there's, a lot of people who have locked in at low interest rates are kind of staying put, not putting their houses on the market because, they don't want to lose that very favorable interest rate that they've locked into. And whether or not your projection for next year is overstated, I guess is my concern. So I'd like to hear what you might have to say on that.
Yeah, these are based on averages of actual receipts over the years. I have not done the deep dive on that particular item. Spent more time on some of the higher numbers, but obviously I have time now to look into it.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile looking into that a little bit, and just my sense in looking at it, what I'd like to see there is kind of a month by month comparison, how you're doing this year through March, if you can get the data, month over compared to the same month last year. and that will give you a good sense as to whether or not you're starting to see that really trend down, and whether or not you need to make any further adjustment in that particular line. Let's see, other revenue items. Yeah, okay, so I think those, well, I guess the other thing was on the auto grand list. I just don't remember, why was there such a large increase in the auto grand list last year? You know, you don't show a big increase, well, you show an increase this year, but from fiscal year 22 to 23, you went from 287 million to 367 million, and now you're going up to 398. Are those are based on actual filed final grand list numbers, I'm assuming?
Yes, and they're updated based on purchases and sales of vehicles during the year. You might recall that the cost of automobiles has increased. It's been a dynamic. It's been very fast.
I mean,
and that's
it's
really
basically, yeah, it's the whole increase in your grand list essentially is coming from automobiles. And
and I feel that one's the least guesswork, if you will, because it's basically revalues itself every year.
Yeah, okay, well, I guess if it's based on a finalized grand list from October of 2022, then it should be a good number, but it's just a large increase. You know, going up from 287 to 398 million is a big increase. So
Yeah, it's supported by a list of vehicles.
okay. On the expenditure side, there's a few things. One, I'm glad to see that you've added, I think, some positions in the finance area. In looking at your staffing, and maybe it's because it's over in personnel, I'm not sure, but I couldn't tell from your staffing list in the finance area who's actually responsible for payroll. You know, who is the supervisor or manager of payroll?
So far as the manager of payroll, that would be me.
That's you. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have a separate payroll supervisor, payroll manager position.
No, not at our size at this time. You know, we have a payroll clerk. I'm looking to get another because of our weekly payroll. It's just, it doesn't leave time to get projects done. It doesn't enable our payroll person to take a vacation without taking their computer with them. And that's a bad situation.
Yeah, I mean, payroll is probably 2/3 of your spend, I'm assuming. And I'm, you know, I don't think you have enough, you know, expertise in the payroll area if you're also having to oversee payroll and the entire operation. It seems to me you're missing a critical payroll supervision management function there. That's my opinion.
I do believe that is in the Whittlesey report. We're not going to, we just haven't gotten out ahead of that report. You know.
Okay, so I don't know whether that's something you can address with this budget, but I think there's a gap there, to be honest.
And if I could just mention, and you might be getting to this, but in expenses, I have boosted the contingencies in this budget, not only for things that happen, but also I added some money in there thinking that there might be some things we need to spend money on due to the Whittlesey report and the advent of a finance manager as they're trying to implement these changes. So I'm not at $0 if the payroll manager is deemed necessary.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So
Tom, can I ask that we have you
Sure.
hold and then
Yep.
come back? Thank you.
I can do that.
Thank you. I just want to share the love.
Very good.
Mr. Felsigna. Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry. So the first item you led with was the parking at the beach. So could you tell me can you be specific and tell me what you think that's really going to yield
$1.9 million over the next 5 years.
over 5 years? Okay.
And it will grow. Our plan is to execute at the beach, and then as council allows, execute on some of our city streets and other public parking areas. We're finding, well, not every town around us has done this, but certainly New Haven has, and some of the larger towns. And I believe that they're all going to start coming around, so we won't be sticking out like a sore thumb to our citizens when they get used to paying for parking no matter where they go.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other? No? Okay. I have one question, and I do want to piggyback on Mr. Hamilton's comment about the payroll side. And I have felt for some time that the payroll side has been it has been weak in that area as far as expertise. So I do think that that is one thing that I would probably state is going to be a critical item, that that you have proper staffing in there. The other question I had was, David or the mayor, can you please comment to me, as I've been with this board for 4 years, and David, I don't know if you're doing something different or if things are happening different or if it's because you're tier 4. However, it seems as if you're moving positions along rather rapidly, and I don't know if it is because Whittlesley is there or what has changed the process that now you're able to hire when we've actually been waiting for a long time for these positions. And so I honestly wish that this happened some time ago, but what has occurred, or what has let's just say cleared the log jam?
Kim, I have to say, we have an excellent personnel director now that's on top of things, and we all work with her, David and myself, and other department heads. So what we're trying to do, like for instance, somebody gave their notice this week. We're going to immediately put that job up. There's not going to be waiting or a 4 or 5 or 6 week delay. The only problem we are having in some areas, IT being one of them, that our pays are low compared to the other municipalities. And in fact, the person that's leaving, who is excellent in IT, he's leaving for a job that's going to pay him more money. So David and I have talked about this, and we are looking at things like that as well, because again, if everyone else is paying more, then no one's not going to come here. And the point is, IT is huge. We need IT. We need more people in IT, not less. So that's what we do now. We absolutely go forward, and as soon as somebody gives their notice, we move it as quickly. There have been still some positions that have been difficult to fill for whatever reason. I know the generalist, Pam, was one of them, and you've got the hire. She finally got a hire, but as you know, Kim, that's been open, seems like forever, but
Right.
over a
Just
year.
like purchasing was one of the other areas.
Right. And now we have a great guy in purchasing, so we have an
No,
actual department.
and the buyer position was taking forever. I mean, some of these we funded, I want to say at least over 2.5 years ago, maybe 3.
You're right, but
Okay.
I do see people showing interest in coming here and working. We have made some good hires, people that are diligent, people that are, some live here, some don't, but they really do support West Haven and moving it forward and doing the right thing by West Haven. So that helps too. Attitude has a lot to do with it too. Not only experience, but a positive type of attitude, wanting to help the city. And that has been demonstrated throughout the city. I don't know, David, if I missed anything, you want to add something?
No, I just to add that, and there's also an emphasis on credentialed people. And so that could take longer. But one of the things the mayor's allowed us to do in some instances where we had very great needs was to work with temp agencies and bring some people in. And case in point, we are converting one of those temps to to an HRIS position.
That's correct. And that became a feeder pool for that position.
Right.
And just this week, I've secured the personnel generalist who's going to be coming on board in April. So that position has been unfilled for about a year more, fortunately. The planets aligned and the right candidate came through the door, and I think I have two very good hires in my department who will, certainly I think with their credentials and background, support the organization and the needs that we need to move forward on in, the coming year. So I feel very, very good about that.
Very good. One other thing, David, would you just go through, I know you included it in the list, but I think for the committee, it would be helpful for everybody to hear about the positions that you're looking to add this year.
Yes, sure. Let me get that out. Don't want to miss anybody. Yeah, so some of these are approved already, so that's going to be, so we're looking to add almost immediately. In fact, I think once we get through the union and we get it slotted, we will be posting a budget coordinator position. This will add, well, probably can imagine what it'll add, but specifically they'll be working with department heads, with me to develop a budget. After that, they will be working monthly with department heads on how they're doing with their budget, on bringing forward requests for any transfers that might be needed through the year. And that one thing that will be huge. The council let me know the other night that they definitely would like to see that change as to how that's been handled through our department. So that person will become critical to monitoring the budget and allow the rest of us to do the things that we've been hired to do. We are also looking to add, I can't remember how this was written up. Oh, there it is. Sorry. And the additional payroll assistant. And as I'd mentioned before, and so we're going from 9 to 11. Those are the two positions. I didn't see the 0 in the column because we just went from 1 to 2 on the number of people in the same role. And I think I talked a little bit about the reason for that earlier.
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm. To start.
Excuse me?
It's a start. And
yes.
I think there will be opportunities for others, but as I said before, I didn't want to get ahead of the
IT was another.
Oh yeah, that's right. And Pam's helping me out here. We also have
help desk.
Yeah, and in addition to having to replace our security person in IT, we are going to add a help desk technician. This is sorely needed. Our highly trained and paid individuals who ensure our network security and ensure the building and maintenance of the network. It just doesn't. It's a waste of money to have them go and take a new desktop to somebody's desk and install it. It's just, so we'd see the need for somebody to handle, help desk concerns, a little bit of knowledge on, how Windows works, and also to be able to set up computers as needed.
Great.
I think that was
that makes that unit now 4 positions, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I thought I saw something about the police.
Yes. So tax assessment, we also have it's actually going to be an assessment technician. I think it's listed in here as auditor, but that was a mistake. That will be a technician. We handle a huge number of programs through our tax assessor's office. It's not quite the same as some other cities might do it, but all of the tax abatements and payments out to citizens who are below poverty or a veteran, et cetera, that all comes through the tax office, and they're finding it that it's very hard to get the rest of the work done without having additional person there. On the police, we are adding an officer. That I can't remember. And that is within the guidelines, I believe, of where we been saying all along, right? We have one patrol officer that needs to be added there. And there's also some promotions that are reflected in here that are happening. So what was my other so on the health side, we are adding a counselor. What was the no, it's in it's a counselor. It's like a person to guide people through the channels of seeking assistance. I don't want to miss telling you the name of that business. I'm sorry, I don't have that right in front of me.
Pam, do you happen to know what kind of position that is?
In discussion, and I believe I might be correct in it, that it's a social worker.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Exactly that. I knew it began with an S. I couldn't, the word wouldn't come to my mind. So yes, a social worker. It's a role that frankly, a lot of other municipalities have, and this municipality lacked one.
Did exist years ago.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Get it back.
For a long time.
Yeah. So I guess it'd been vacant so long, it found its way out of the previous budgets. So yes, I think it'd be a great opportunity, a great service for our citizens, helping them navigate, where to get aid, how to get aid, and working with the rest of the employees here at the city to dispense aid. In Public Works, we're pulling back together a team which used to exist that will do some planning, some building and zoning,
Public space.
public space improvement, inspections. Tom is here. I think you, a couple sentences on exactly what you're doing there.
So we've created a public space inspector that is from the front door out, light. And we are also looking to put back the solid waste coordinator position. That was the person who inspected to make sure that we were not picking up places we shouldn't be picking up, i.e. businesses, apartment complexes, bulk pickup, making sure the trucks are empty. Right now, we go out at 4 a.m. ourselves because that position hasn't been funded for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kim, this is
Not like
Tom
she's
Hamilton.
entitled.
I had a question
Yes.
on that item.
I did too. Go ahead. Finish.
Yeah, so my question is, I think this is a position you're referring to. It says property maintenance and zoning enforcement. And when I first saw that, it looked to me very similar to a position I saw over in planning and development. And I'm wondering if what is the reason it's located here in Public Works as opposed to adding a position in planning and development? Is it really a Public Works function, or is it a building department type function, or a zoning enforcement type function that seems like it's under a different department?
Sure, it's a great question, Tom. So the way we decided on it was these are spaces that my Public Works people actually maintain. So therefore, it would come out of the Public Works department. The building department has from the front door in, and we would have the public space from the front door out along the curb line. That's all Public Works.
So are these private properties or is this city property that we're talking about?
It often is both, but mostly it's city-owned properties that Public Works maintains. I'll give you a perfect example, a courtyard we have where a bar has wants to put a table and chairs, that would be the public space. But we would also get involved in private disputes. Say if there was a blight on the outside or sewer issues or water issues, we would get involved in that.
Okay, thanks.
I had a question when you mentioned the trash part of it. I know you participated in the DEEP grant, and that was a pilot. And so I did see in this budget that it looked like you were looking at a different program versus the I'm assuming the bag program. So did you move away from that project, and are you looking to fund it differently? I just wanted to hear where you were at with that.
Oh, no, the project continues.
Okay.
I don't know there are a couple, we still need to collect the trash, and there are a couple of options we're looking at. We are rebidding trash collection.
That's
in
what
the
I
year.
was looking at.
Yeah,
That's what I was,
yeah.
yes.
That's the actual pickup of the trash, and we're hoping that we can get a reduced rate because we want to go to a different method. And that would be the large bins that do not require an individual to jump off the truck and dump it in the back, be an automated pickup, which could save the city some money. We've reflected trash basically flat through the period. And that is with the hope that we can avoid the exorbitant increases in tipping fees that we know that are on the horizon by adopting the trash sorting program and taking advantage of that, not only helping the economy, but helping our citizens with their finances. Yeah, Tom has some.
We just got some preliminary numbers last week that our overall trash was down 11.6%.
Oh, that's great.
That's the first numbers we have from the program. We are very interested in continuing that program. One of the efficiencies we will bring to you is I just got a hold of Branford's quote to go to the automated totes. We have that same number. It's $54.50 a tote. The efficiency would be that we could potentially go to the larger recycling bin, get away from the 14-gallon we have now, go to a 96 and pick it up every 2 weeks. So that would be an efficiency right there that we're looking at. That would require a 5-year contract in order to amortize the cost of the cans. We looked at doing this when we first came in. It was exorbitant. The number I have now for the cans is actually less. So we have that number. I think we'd like to bring that to the subcommittee meeting pretty soon and see if there's an appetite for that efficiency.
Okay, very good. Mr. White, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you. I don't know what your pages are, Mr. Taylor, but on page 145 of our handout, which is sort of the middle of the 5-year plan. I don't know if we're literally on the same page.
Okay. What are we looking at?
Yeah, there's on the FY23 forecast, there are additions to the general fund. The context is there seems to be no surplus generated in the 5 years of the plan, if I read this correctly, but there are fund balance adjustments, the bulk of which take place in a forecast for FY23. Can you explain, just tell me what that's all about?
Yeah, so that is the surplus we believe that we'll have this year. Do really to do the interest, mostly that we're getting the interest income on our investments. We are presenting a balanced numbers, and so therefore we don't show the surplus there, especially in the 5-year plan. So all of those numbers would be planned increases to the fund balance adjustment, with the exception of the forecast, of course, which would reflect there's a surplus in there.
Okay, all right. So I guess the almost 2.4 is what you think is going to be a surplus. You presented balanced budgets. That's why the surplus line is blank.
Correct.
But you've got in 24, you've got a $525,000 adjustment and two other adjustments in 26 and 27. What are they?
As we've noted, one of our goals as a city is to increase our general fund. And
Yes.
this is us increasing our general fund.
I mean, how if it's not by surplus?
It's planned.
Budgeting, right?
Is budgeted
Well, no,
planned
just-
surplus. This is
It's a planned surplus?
yes. We are increasing taxes to fund the general fund. We don't have an expense item. We're not going to pay a vendor. We're not going to pay an employee. We are planning to spend money to fund the general fund.
Okay, got it. I noticed that in the DPW, Mr. McCarthy, that there in the 23 forecast, there's a $44,000 overtime projection, which then disappears.
So the way the city budgets, and typically the overtime is due to people being out, absences. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, as I go along here. So our overtime will sometimes go up, but during the year, and that is because we projected those positions to be full. We project those positions to be full at the top step of their position, and for that, in order to cover if there needs to be any overtime. If we were to budget overtime on top of that, we would be presenting a budget that was way too high, because you basically be counting for the salaries of the same person twice. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but we have had overtime where there are vacancies, and we're budgeting to not have vacancies.
Okay, but that, I mean, it's, I know that's a hard thing. Crystal balls do get cloudy, but
Thank you.
But that may very well continue, right? Because I do know that Mr. McCarthy said that there are going to be some additional positions within DPW. I don't know that they seem like new positions, but all right, so that may be something that is going to continue to be in flux. I noticed that on DPW, the administrative line went up by 42% over the 5 years. Is that because of the new positions Mr. McCarthy just outlined?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And highway and parks went up 30%. Is that because of the mayor's new initiative about having nicer public spaces?
The biggest driver in that area was our projection on the cost of electricity. That department pays for our streetlights, et cetera.
Okay, but this was in the wages.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the
that was
wages
one
are
thing,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, so budget to budget, you'll notice there's very little increase. That reflects open positions in 2023.
Yep.
And you'll notice that there's a little bit of overtime overspend in 2023, getting by with less, I guess, and then refilling the positions that are needed. And I would say that it does directly reflect the mayor's initiatives to keep the city beautiful or make it even more beautiful.
Yeah.
By being fully staffed.
Yep. No, I mean, I'll just lay it out. One of my concerns is that adding new positions that people have been talking about for a while and certain other initiatives, I think those are all good. But in terms of the available revenue, I am concerned about the tax rate. And I don't know if there are areas of savings. And I've got a question on the mitigation when we get to it. I think that may be a separate thing, Kim. So I'll ask the final question is, I notice on the mill rates that, the city certainly had its mill rate projected. Allentown did the same, but there was no information from the other two fire districts on what they projected their increase was going to be. I guess that's a process question. Are
Yes.
they just saying, we'll get to it when we get to it, we don't particularly care?
No, of course not. They are under their own timelines, and they are keeping to their timelines. I've been answering questions for them recently. And I believe one of them has their vote on Memorial Day. I can't remember when the other one was, but they are not on the same timeline as the city.
What I'm talking about is a 5-year projection. Are they committed to doing a 5-year projection? I'm not concerned so much with what's it going to be this year as opposed to where are you in 5 years?
Oh, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I will have to ask them. I'm sorry, I've not had a lot of communication with those independent districts.
Because there was one of the issues just that you may know is for at least 4 years, this board has been very concerned about the fire districts, the fact that there are 3 of them. And whether that's adding costs, there does not seem to be a desire to voluntarily cooperate. It's been 4 years discussing whether to have a common investment manager, which is one of many things. So I think in terms of just this budget, which is I think, Kim, we ought to talk a little bit about what's going to be different about our process, given that this is a tier 4 budget. I agree that we have to understand it first. But are there any benchmarks for what it costs fire departments to run based on, some criteria, whether it's population, density, types of buildings, whatever? Because it just seems to me that we, I'm certainly looking for savings in the budget. And maybe to fund some critical positions. But I'm just wondering, you may not know that right now, but just going forward, it might be a good benchmark, because I don't think, this board should just be picking numbers out of the air and say, let's cut this by 5% or 3% or 10%. But there need to be cuts, it seems to me. So if you could add that to your list. And Kim, when we get to mitigation, I've got another question.
So just to get this clear, Mr. White, we're looking to benchmark the cost of a fire district, correct?
Excellent. Excellent.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I did not realize I was on mute. Sorry about that. Mr. White, I do see Mr. Waxenberg is here as a guest today, but I do, Mark, if you don't mind, I see that one board member has their hand up first, and then I will reach over to you, Mr. Falsigno.
Yeah. Speaking to what Mr. White just mentioned, and I was going to wait until we got further down in the meeting into the open items. So we've been talking about the consolidation of a financial advisor for the fire districts.
Mm-hmm.
for as long as I've been on this board. So I think that has to be a priority. It's been a priority, it just hasn't been addressed. It's listed as, I mean, I can read to you what it says, but that would be moot. The other thing that we spoke about, and we've talked about the fire departments at length, is the economies of scale that need to be realized. And I think, Mr. White referred to that, and I think Mr. Taylor, I think that's something that, again, has to be prioritized, because if you're you only have so many hours in the day, and you seem to have a lot of balls in the air. And I believe, in my view, that is where you're going to get your biggest bang for the buck, so to speak, where you, if you prioritize the districts, there seems to be, I think, a view, at least my view, that there might be some scaled savings across the board. And that's just something I think that needs to be addressed and looked at sooner than later. And I think that needs to have a timeline on it, because we're talking about some of the, and again, I know it's going to be spoken about later on, the open items, but the open items, it's very clear that is one of the open items, and it's listed as pending. So that's something I would like to see worked on, or at least have a timeline on.
I know you didn't ask a question, but if I could just make a comment,
Sure, that was my comment. I apologize. There was no question.
So what we're talking about by consolidation would mean the closing of a firehouse. I mean, that's where you would save the money, just to make that clear. And that's really my comment.
I mean, perhaps. Okay. Thank you for your opinion. Thanks.
Mr. Waxenberg.
Just a quick question for when you reach the full board. You're adding positions, which I can understand. But, I'm not there, so you determine that. The only other thing I would suggest is, as most of us may have been managers or directors, before we add positions, we normally look at our existing chart to determine if any other positions that are on the board are worth keeping, or should be redefined to incorporate the needs of what your new positions would provide. So in other words, addition being a former math teacher, addition is not the only mathematical operation, There is also a look at subtraction to determine if in fact there would be any infringement on the abilities to do the job for the citizens. But nonetheless, at the full board level, I would be concerned and ask the same question. The necessity for the job to be done is clearly up to you as people living and working in the city. My only issue is assessing the existing manning or person chart to determine if it needs to be added or positions can be consolidated to get the job done and not save and not expend additional dollars. I think the general sense is we're looking at mitigation, not addition. So I would just offer that as a comment. And the other thing also quickly is salaries. The mayor mentioned that salaries of certain positions being low. Of course, the town is in stress. They've had zero increases in certain positions for years. So your salaries are not going to be commensurate. That's the reality. Now you bring them back up in accordance with the monies that are available and the restructuring of the cities and towns' revenue structure and expense structure. That's why we're here. So I can sympathize, but we have seen other cities or have seen another city crawl out of that using the various methods that we've talked about, not only addition. So with that said, I'll leave it to the members to continue their questioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for joining us and contributing today. I have other questions. If I'm looking into the overtime area across some of the existing departments, and when you look at them in the trend, David or Mayor, I would then see that some of our expenditures are projecting that they were coming in higher at FY23. And in some cases, we've decided to carry the overtime on within. And in some cases, we are asking for more funds. So I'm going to just give two examples. One being, and maybe it's one-time situations that have occurred and that are drawing out. But if I look at the grant administration position, we're projecting out that this year, FY23 is going to have overtime of 6,000. We've never had overtime of 6,000, but we're projecting that it's going to be 10 for all of the other years. I'm just wondering why, and if it's a position situation, then, if you need a part-timer, then, get a part-timer versus paying time and a half.
I did pay 7,000 in overtime in that department, 22, but that.
Yep.
Still an increase for the rest of the years. We do find ourselves having to send our assistants to grants meetings. We are overloading them right now, and you could argue that will go away in 2026 with additional ARPA matters to take care of. And for that reason, we are putting in more overtime. Whether 10,000 is the right number or not, it may or may not be. I do want to have some room there in order to cover what's needed.
You mentioned ARPA, so if they have to work extra, is it being funded through the ARPA funds? And so that's one thing I didn't see is the ARPA budget within here, and can that be provided to us, please?
We could definitely get that. That is, this is really just the general fund and then the sewer and the fire. We can definitely get that. I'll work with them to pull that together.
Right. And if you had other grants, just like we do with the Board of Ed, we ask for all funds so that we can see the subsidies between. We need the same here.
And to answer your question, we have not been transferring that cost to ARPA. It is definitely under consideration right now.
Okay. So I guess I'm going to.
Not all of that time is ARPA. Let's just be straight.
Yep.
Some of it's our assistant grant individuals attending council meetings, attending informational meetings, especially with the trash sorting program. That's got a lot of information, and we don't anticipate that will slow down anytime soon.
Okay. Mr. Hamilton.
Okay, thank you. A few more questions from me. On the public works budget, I noticed street lighting is going from, you're projecting to spend 720,000 this year to 1.4 million next year. So that's a major increase there. And I'm assuming it's got something to do with the big increase in electric rates. But can you give us a little more understanding as to where that $1.4 million come from? Is it based on a number that has been provided to you by United Illuminating? And I guess more to the point, have you looked at any cost saving measures that you could potentially take in the street lighting area?
Mr. Spryer did the analysis. I'm gonna refer to him.
Yeah, so our electricity, the street lighting is based off of our electricity contract that we signed, which increased our rate from 7.6 cents per kilowatt hour to 12.8 cents per kilowatt hour. So that is just a natural progression in the almost 90% increase in our electricity rate over the previous year.
And do you own the streetlights, or are they owned by the, I guess you're in the UI service area there. So are they owned by UI, or are they owned by the city?
We pay for the streetlights. I don't know who owns them, though. I can find that out, but we pay the electricity to light the lights, obviously.
I'm sure we own all the ornamental ones. I think we do own them all. And anticipating a future question, they are already converted to LED.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be, so I guess maybe you've already done all the things you can do there, but I'd just like to get some confirmation, on whether or not you've examined the option to purchase. Maybe you purchased them a decade ago, I don't know. But there is there's a couple different ways to kind of structure streetlights, and you can rent them and pay a monthly charge to the utility. You can purchase the lights, and you have to, that involves a significant upfront capital expense, but it may be, worthwhile to do that depending on the cost of those lights. And then the issue of, when they were last relamped, and sounds like they were relamped recently. So, but given the, sizable increase in that budget, $700,000 increase, I think it's worthwhile for the board to have, some documentation on exactly what it is you're doing with streetlights to make sure that any savings opportunities that can be realized are realized.
Yeah, so if I could just mention, I confirm, Mr. McCarthy, we do own those lights. So we own the lights, they are LED. I think this board approved the installation of a solar farm up on the.
We did.
I believe you've also, if you haven't approved it, it will be brought before you. We're looking to put solar panels at least one city parking lot. I believe that's already come to them. Yeah, that you've already approved that. So, we are not ignoring, opportunities. We are, maybe we don't shout it from the mountaintop as high as we should. However, we are looking to reduce our electric rates as many ways as we can.
If I may.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Tom McCarthy, we are in the process now of retrofitting all of the city-owned buildings. We've done the police station, we've done the city hall. We have a few more buildings to go. The last piece for us is actually our playing fields. We still use the high-powered light fixtures, but because they're still under warranty, it doesn't make sense to change them yet, but we are looking at that as well.
Okay, Kim, I have a few more questions, but I don't know if you've got others to go to first.
You can ask just a couple more, and then we'll move over to Mr. Waxenberg again.
Okay, one is really just an information request for David, and that is one additional kind of way to kind of slice and dice the budget that I find to be helpful is a fund summary by object. So rolling up for the entire general fund, all expenses by object, so that we can kind of get a sense as to, what's the total amount in electricity, what's the total amount for supplies, and so forth. So if you can supply that to the board, I think that would be helpful. And on the unallocated contingency line, you've got, and you had mentioned this, there's a sizable increase in unallocated contingency, and I don't want you to, share any information which needs to remain confidential for the time being. But one of my questions is what contracts are unsettled for next year, and where have you, and this really could be discussed or should be discussed in executive session if we're going to get into the actual assumptions. But the question really is, well, what assumption have you made with respect to the cost of any unsettled labor contracts, and how much of that total unallocated contingency, how much of it is sort of spoken for already? Just so while I'm So I'll stop there. I don't know if you have any question or any
Well,
response on
I
that.
think the only response we can give is that there are two labor unions currently in negotiation. One of them is our largest, 681, which is most of the office people.
Or three
Oh, I'm sorry, three. Another one is
dispatchers.
our dispatchers. Oh, and water pollution. Sorry.
Sorry, they're all expiring at the same time.
Did you catch all that?
Dispatchers, and I didn't hear the last one.
Water
Pollution?
pollution.
Water
The sewer.
pollution. Sewer, okay.
So I guess maybe it'd be helpful, you know, for you to at least share with the staff offline the assumptions with respect to those contracts. And then if we want to have a discussion, we would have to do it in executive session. But I think.
And we're we are just in the preliminary stages of formulating proposals for all three contracts. So we're kind of still in the developmental aspect of approaching those negotiations. In fact, there's 2 meetings today, so.
I don't know that we can even share that with the staff. I don't think that's appropriate, but I mean, say it's in line with the past. Huh? No, I'm sorry. We just can't.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Just two other issues. One is some of the other items that you have in this contingency area. I'm not quite sure why they're in contingency, because some of them look like they may be, you know, sort of expected known expenses, you know, bank fees. I would think like bank fees would be in the finance area, and your election expense, I would think, would be under registrar of voters. So I'm not sure why some of those items are in contingency.
Actually, if the full name of that section is a contingency other expenses. And so these are sort of unallocated, things that are not allocated to individual budgets. You could argue that some of these could belong in a one place or another, but historically they've been here. And so that's where they are today.
Right. Your HR payroll outsourcing, you know,
yeah,
I would think that would be in your HR department or your finance department, but
one of the first things I noticed when I came on board was that it was there. That is actually the cost of us paying ADP. And it, we'll just, you know, you should know that.
Right.
But that's where we put it. I believe the thought was, well, we could allocate that based on the relative salaries in every single department in the organization, or we could just put it here. So.
Okay,
I would centralize that cost and put it under maintenance under the controller's area.
Well,
yeah.
For all intents and purposes, the controller manages this department as well.
Right. Okay, so I have one last question on workers' comp. You had indicated earlier that you know, you were going to be addressing over a very lengthy period the unfunded liability in the internal service funds, and I'm not sure where I see this budget making any progress there. And in fact, I'm concerned, without, you know, having all the information, you know, at my fingertips, but looking at your budget for workers' comp, your actual expense from last year was 2.4 million. Your year to date is 1,260,000, and your projection to end the year is 1,875,000. You know, I'm not sure. You seem to be running at a higher rate than that projection would indicate, and then your budget next year is 1.7 million. So, you know, just kind of looking at the overall numbers, it looks to me like, if anything, your workers' comp number in the budget next year may be light, and so I don't see where, you know, you're making progress in terms of addressing that unfunded liability.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the unfunded liability came to our attention after the budget was issued, and, you know, making a change to the budget after it's been issued is not the right time for that. Obviously something, well, it is something that I expect will come up in the public hearings over the next month. But you're absolutely right. It's not in there. If you were to look at the 5-year plan, there are, I've spiked out increases to that fund balance on a separate line, and I've highlighted it green. I'm not sure if your copy has color, but it probably looks like it's been crossed out. But anyway, we've got $2.2 million over the next 5 years earmarked for that fund. If you could appreciate, I'm walking a delicate balance here of general fund balance increases and internal service fund balance increases. You know, savings initiatives and revenue enhancements aside, it's a bit tight in trying to keep mill rates. I hate to say it, use the word acceptable to a reasonable growth for our citizens.
Okay, but I guess I'm still basically even wondering the 1.7 you have in next year's budget for workers' comp, to me looks like it's not going to be enough unless you've got some further explanation as to why, you know, you would have spent 2.4 million last year and you know, looks like you're going to you know, spend more than the 1.875 that you're projecting to me this year. You know, it seems like your run rate is really up in the over $2 million range or $2.5 million range, and so you know, a $1.7 million budget may have you going backwards on that internal service fund next year.
Right. Well, yeah, it's a good point. It's a fair point. Yes, we might be a little light in that area.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. White.
Yeah, I'm looking at page 123 of your 124 of your material on this is on capital expense, 138 of our material. You had mentioned if for 24 you got 40 million of capital expenses, 80 million for 25, and then, you know, lesser going forward. And the bulk of it is something you had addressed. It's in sewer. Part of it was the clean water settlement obligation that you have, and then replacing end of useful life of material of another 35 million. And you did say that you're seeking grants, one at 25%, the other at 75%, you know, TBD. I'm just wondering what the budget assumption is going forward within the 5 years. Are you planning on budgeting the amount that you need to pay net of grants? How are you paying for this?
Yeah, we can definitely get the clean water fund. That's not an issue. The plan anticipates the worst case, which would be the clean water funds. But
and you're going to bond it. You're going to bond it. Is that the deal?
Well, the clean water fund would be a clean water fund loan, 2% loan through that agency. So that would be 100%. So 20% grant, 80% loan through the clean water fund.
And you budgeted a 2%, you know, whatever it is, you budgeted like a $27 million loan at 2% for how many years?
Sorry, I don't know that off the top of my head. Our analyst at yes, a lot of years.
Okay,
our analyst
good.
at Munistat provided that for us.
Then you had end of useful life of 35 million.
That's the outfall reconstruction. That is in the budget, assuming we can get a 20% grant. The hope is that we'll get a 75% grant. but it's budgeted at the max debt service.
Over how many year, debts over how many,
yeah,
so it's
I
your
believe-
bond debt?
Yes, that would be bonding.
And
That would
you
be
made a-
roughly
you-
40 years, I think, is what the number is.
Okay, and you've put the annual debt service in your 5-year plan at roughly that area on a conservative assumption that you're not going to get a gift from heaven or, okay.
Absolutely, but we're praying every day.
Well, that good. No, whatever it takes, whatever it takes. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Waxenberg.
Two
Mark?
quick things. You mentioned that you're zeroing out overtime and going to be paying out of it, the salary account because of vacancies. Did I hear that correctly? Because for some,
Yes, and I guess said another way, sir, we do not budget for open positions. You know, we budget for full positions at the top rate of the position. If you
Yeah,
hire a
you
new
mean-
person, they obviously don't come in at the top rate.
right, for vacancies. At
Yes.
the full board level, I would have difficulty voting with that procedure. I think it's not transparent. Somebody should know how much overtime is being associated with a particular department, vacancies, open positions or not. So to fund or not show accountability and or transparency of overtime on a budget, I think, even though I understand the probability is you're going to have an open position for a year and you're going to fund it. People are going to take overtime because of that open position when it should be just vacations and illness. But that said, I'm just letting you know what my position will be at the full board member. And also I noted that the board person's here just before I sign off here. If at the full board, full MARB meeting, a list of vacancies by department, same thing, you know, positions, vacancies, et cetera. I know the town has done it on their side, but would like to see, as we see in all the other towns, the same thing, just that the board could provide that information for the board, full MARB board. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Have fun.
Thank you, Mark. Matt, did you hear that was instructed for you at the Board of Ed?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. One other question. So you're planning to build a new fire station?
And this is something that's been in the works for quite a while. It was in last year's five-year plan as well. The building, I don't, so if somebody could speak to the condition of the building. I don't know that we're prepared to, we're not trying to get that passed today, but that has been in the capital plan for a while.
I don't think
That-
nothing's probably going to be passed today. I think today's going to be a gathering session.
Right. Well, I guess my point was we're not looking to seek approval for a new fire station today.
Yeah, it's in your capital budget with a capital line item within
Correct.
FY24 for $1
Yes.
million that you're looking to go bond fund for.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I just wanted to bring that to your attention that, and then it's, 4 million in the out years.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're planning the debt service on those.
And within that consolidation, then is that to incorporate any of the consolidations of the districts? Or no, this is only looking at Allentown?
This is early Allentown.
And that would mean, Kim, that the Allentown residents are the only ones that would pay towards that fire house.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Do you have another question, Mr. Waxenberg? I see your hand is up before you depart. Or no, you're just listening.
May have left.
Yeah, he's here, but his hand is up too. Okay, then I will move to you, Mr. White.
Yes, I'm going to move on to the mitigation, and I'll just preface it with, so people can think about it. like to make this a sort of a partnership. We know it's a difficult situation. I'm mainly looking at the 5-year plan. And I really appreciate having it right next to the
Yes,
budget, so we
we
can
do,
have this
yeah.
talk.
We
Very
do need
much
to give
appreciate it.
kudos. I agree. I agree
Yeah.
entirely for your hard work in providing this at the same time. This, I think,
And
is a
it-
first.
It gives us a way to look at it. But my instinct is that the tax rate is too high. And that there are some expenses that I think you need to be more aggressive on, like the internal service fund, like perhaps the fund balance, like funding the OPEB trust. And there may be others. And I think that you're going to have to find some savings in elsewhere within the budget. I'll just leave that there between now and then so that you can think about it. And I'm just one person out of many, but I've looked at the revenue enhancement, the mitigation measures. One mitigation measure that we mentioned briefly at some meeting a couple of weeks ago was whether the city would be able to follow up on the some of the Cohn-Resnick report type items that may be in the city budget and get an attempt to claw some back. I understand that for some things, setting aside the DeMassa thing, I know there's forfeitures and you're working on that. I don't want to talk about that. Talking about some of the others where I think the improper thing may have been moved to the city line and you took the hit. Whether there's any ability to claw back some of those things, for example, work not done, the things that were in the report. And I would just ask you to add that to your mitigation measures and report on that at the big meeting. It may not be a lot of money, but there are civil remedies, some I'm told in the charter, where you can, if certain procedures aren't followed, you can claw money back. And I think that would help in terms of institutional integrity and, certainly help on the budget. So I would just ask that you add that and report on whether it's possible. If so, what you're going to do. If not, why not?
And just so you're aware, Mr. White, that has been added to the open items list as requested. So it's still sitting on the open items list, which is an agenda item coming up, but we did add it. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about the budget or the 5-year plan? All right, I think we have, were you going to say something, Mr. Hamilton? I saw your mouth open. But you're on mute.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you.
The parking monetization, the 5-year plan talks about it being a $1.5 million projected revenue over 5 years. Is that 1.9 million just related to the beach parking component, or is it the larger plan that you referenced?
It does include some expansion, limited though, of a couple of streets that we've identified that we are going to go to council with in the very near term.
Okay, and how much is just the beach parking component on a first year basis?
I don't have the breakout for that, Mr. Hamilton, but I can get it for you, what our projection was.
Okay, I mean, I do think there should be some opportunity. I think that, that it's definitely an area worth pursuing. I agree with Mr. White that there needs to be other initiatives, and I would say on both the revenue side and the expense side, in order to, generate more efficiencies and more funds that can be used to plug some of these other areas that we've talked about shortfalls in. So, you know, I think the internal service funds, the workers' comp area, I think you're going to need to do more in. I'm not too troubled by your proposed mill rate change. I hear what Mr. White says, and certainly I agree. West Haven's mill rates are really pushing, you know, as far as you really want to go. But I think what you've proposed overall is something I could live with in terms of the mill rate increase for next year. But you know, I do agree there needs to be more work done in terms of trying to find other cost savings as well as other sources of additional revenue. And I do think some of them have to be, you have to kind of pick away at these or chip away at these a little at a time, that it's not going to necessarily be one big thing, but really a half dozen things that you need to kind of work on.
We've listed a few items here, but it is a bigger project and it is ongoing. I just introduced Rick Spryer. He is heading our mitigation measures team. And so, you know, the city's serious about it. We've identified an individual to run it. And there's a team where you're looking at a team that's very supportive.
That's good news. Any other questions on the budget or the 5-year plan before we move on to the next agenda item? All right, let's move on then. And the next item on the agenda is contracts over 50,000 that require approval from the MARB. It has been brought to our attention that some contracts that are over 50 should have been brought to the MARB for approval, and they have not. I'm going to ask the city to please comment on that. I'd really like to hear about the process. Why did it get missed? And then after we hear about the process of why did it get missed, what is going to happen to remedy it? And then making sure that we have full coverage of all of the contracts 50 and greater, to hear that explanation as to making sure that we have a full encompass list that will come to our attention.
It's, you know, so go ahead.
I'll go first. I know it's all the contracts. I know that we did go through them because we were concerned that some might have been missed over the 50,000 mark. I will speak to the new car because that's, to me, the elephant in the room, if you will. The new vehicle that was purchased was signed off by Scott Jackson. It was in the 5-year capital plan, so everyone knows it was in there, I believe, FY22 and FY23. In FY22, instead of, you know, the car could have been purchased then, we decided to hold off, reason being because there was a better deal, if you will, with the $15,000 electric cars we were allowed to purchase. And so we used some of the funding for that. The following year, yes, the car was purchased. No, it did not go before MARB. As I said, Scott Jackson, the finance director at the time, did sign off on the purchase. I do have all the documents here, which obviously you should have them as well. We are trying to do better, and we will continue to get better at this. I do apologize for this. This was not anyone's intention, including my own, because I don't get involved in any purchasing, whether that's what we have Rick Spryer for. I don't get involved in any purchasing whatsoever. So I don't know if there's any questions you have that I can answer. I'll be happy to if I have the answer for you.
Yeah. Excuse me, I do. Mayor, you know that you've been put under oversight, and there's a reason for that, and that because of I don't even want to say allegations. It's not allegations anymore. We've had theft there, and that is because of the lack of controls and the lack of discipline. And so you've been elevated to a higher tier because of the weakness that you have there. And so to hear that this happened while you're under tier 4 and that this wasn't brought forth is really makes you wonder if this is deliberate and that all the parties that are aware when a new car shows up. So I really want to know, did Mr. Jackson do this on his own? Did he go against purchasing procedures? What was the procedure? I know you said he signed off on it. Mr. Spryer, were you aware of this? Did he follow the PO? Did you have to sign off on the purchasing process? It's a capital item. So I'm an accountant. I've overseen a CFO, that I've overseen entire finances, and I can tell you that that would not have gotten by me.
Well, first, I don't want to speak for Mr. Spryer, but he was actually in the hospital when this took place. So he had there was no way he was going to be able to sign off on it. I, again, did not have anything to do with the purchase. However, the car was, and it's not, I know everyone says it's my car. It's a city car that will be used by myself or whatever mayors come in the future. So it's not like my car. I did not go out and purchase it or anything at all like that. And I do agree with you, Kim. I do. I know it shouldn't have happened. It should not happen. We are in tier 4. I can't go back and unring the bell, if you will, but we are trying our best. Rick Spryer has been an excellent asset to our team and helpful with keeping everybody on the straight and narrow path, if you will. So again, if there's any other questions, I mean, I can't go back and undo it. If I could, believe me, I would. This has not been an easy road for anybody in the city with this new car.
Rick, any comment if this was today and you weren't sick, that this could be purchased right now if you overseeing based on the processes that we have right now?
If it had to come to me, it's a bit of a loaded question. The process, if process is followed correctly, then no, absolutely not would the purchase have been made.
That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to
yes.
hear. So that's telling me somebody circumvented the process.
Like, unfortunately, Kim, as Mayor Rossi said, I wasn't here at that time.
I understand.
But yes, as right
but
now,
I'm asking for today
Yes.
and going forward. If somebody wanted to buy a car right now, can that get purchased without you knowing? Yes or no?
no.
In fact, we had a discussion yesterday about buying some new patrol cars.
Yes.
Rick was part of the discussion. We talked about the process and the procedure and the need to come before the MARB, et cetera. And, those things are there.
And David, I want to say that as well, because I'm sure you're a signature on a check and taking place. So therefore,
Absolutely.
can this purchase be happening and circumventing the process right now
No, it can't.
with you as the CFO?
Yeah, with me in place, no, I would not let this happen.
Okay. I'm going to pass this on to, because this is embarrassing and it should not happen. And to me, it feels like it's deliberate. And I am sorry to say that there's no reason for it. There's none. Mr. Falsigno, you were the first one to put your hand up.
Lucky me.
And I don't mean to be strong on those that did not have their hands in it if you did not have your hands in it.
So that's all well and good that we're going to go forward and, we have a new team here in West Haven or new team members. Mr. Taylor coming on board. I'm impressed with what you had to say today. You seem to have a handle on things, but this car is emblematic of the years on this board and the missteps that continue to happen. I think it's really great that everybody says going forward, this isn't going to happen. But the citizens of West Haven, which I am not one of, I would have a problem with this. I would have a problem with a lot of the things that continue to happen because every time it happens, the citizens of West Haven have to pay a price, and they're rewarding, by paying a price, they're rewarding bad behavior. That's one item. Going forward on a completely separate issue, shame on us. This is the MARB. The MARB has been edicting things to your administration, Mayor, and your group and your finance directors over the years of numerous items that have been brought up. And I'll go back to the Cone Resnick. It's been a couple, I'm trying to look at the date here. So most of them have been well over a year and a half, some 2. Many of these issues that we've brought up, especially the process of ensuring that things like this don't happen, have been completely avoided. And I think it's embarrassing. I know it's a company car, I know it's a West Haven car, and I understand that, but you're driving it. So for this to slip through at the highest level, I find it disturbing on many levels. And I think the policies and procedures that we've spoken about endlessly over the last 2 or 3 years, I think it's an embarrassment, not only for the city of West Haven, but for the MARB also. So that's my statement. It's not a question.
Andrea, I believe you were next, and then Mr. White.
Yes, thank you. You know, I'm.
Oh, you went on
sorry,
mute.
Yep.
That's
sorry.
okay.
Okay.
There you go.
I keep getting muted and I'm not doing anything. But anyway, you know, I am new here, and obviously my colleagues have been at this table far longer. But I have concerns. I have concern number one is that we're blaming someone who is no longer there.
Yeah.
Number two, I'm concerned when I hear statements like, you know, it's a city car, it wasn't my car. Like, why would Mr. Jackson purchase a car for your use without you're requesting that he do so? Like, I don't understand that. And then finally, like, what happens if, God forbid, something else happens to Mr. Spire, medical or otherwise? What is the process that's going to prevent somebody from circumventing what you all have said will be a process going forward?
Well, the first thing I do want to reply, when I say it's not my car, because people make it sound like it's my car, I get to keep it, it's not my car. So that's why I'm saying that. Did I know the car was being purchased? Absolutely. It was in the 5-year plan. The council approved it more than once. What happened was, again, with you know, Rick Spryer being unfortunately in the hospital, and we're glad he's well. So that's the most important thing. I'll be honest with you about his hospital stay. That being said, again, the car was there to be purchased. It was placed in the capital plan prior to going to Tier 4. So I think that might have been part of the confusion as well. That being said, the council did approve it more than once because it did appear in the 5-year plan more than once. And normally before Tier 4, that would have been good enough. So I do apologize. As I said before, I cannot take it back. I did not, again, I did not get involved with the purchasing procedure, and I still stand by that. I haven't signed anything. I don't ever get involved with the purchasing procedure. The only time I sign a voucher is in my office if there is a line overrun for whatever in my particular mayor's budget. So I can't take it back. I can't change the past. All I can do is we are going to do better going forward. And we already have.
Mr. White is next.
Thank you.
You were finished, right, Andrea? I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are you finished, Andrea?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I agree that the failure to file the process is a serious matter, but the substance is very problematic. Mayor, why do you need a $50,000 car?
First off, it was in the 5-year capital plan for more than $50,000. It was in there for 65. It was approved by the city council. Unanimously, my understanding is for both years. Again, it is part of one of the things that I am allowed as mayor, and previous mayors have had new cars as well and have had cars. So it's commonplace that the mayor does get a car for use.
Car for use is fine. When you say it was in the capital budget, did it say mayor's car 65,000 so that the public in West Haven knew exactly what was happening?
They don't call it mayor's car. They put the license plate on it. So yes, I did obtain that documentation from Mr. Orifice, who is in charge of all our cars at where he is over on College Street. So yes, it does. It says it's not WH, it's WN1 is the marker plate number.
Right,
That's
but it doesn't say mayor's car. So this could be a, I don't know what. And by the way, are Ford Explorers $50,000?
It was what threw it over the $50,000 was the dealer's prep and something else. It ended up being 51 something. So again, I did not go there. I did not get it. I did the best, as I said, I tried very hard to get all the paperwork and everything else, because that's why I know they deal it by license plate. So the license plate, that's the mayor's license plate. Whoever the mayor is, their license plate is WN1. So whether it's me, whether it's somebody else 10 years from now, whether it was somebody else 10 years ago. And yes, it was absolutely commonplace for the mayor to get a new car. They try to rotate the fleet. The car that I had was over 11 years old. So they try to rotate the fleet and put it back into the fleet. And then so that if the mayor does have to entertain guests or go or whatever, that they have a decent looking car. I did not go and say, I want a car over $50,000. That was put in by Mr. Orifice, he's the one who does all of that planning for the city, not just my car, but any cars, whether it's Public Works, whether it's WPCA, he's in charge of the cars. He's supervisor, that's why.
Is there any
I have-
relationship between Branford Ford and anyone in the city?
No, thank you. No, there is not.
And what was Mr. Esposito's role? He's the one whose name appears on this.
Mr. Esposito's role was he went and looked at the car. He's familiar with cars, and he's the one who actually assisted in picking it out. I did not go. I mean,
can we get a list of all the other cars that are commonplace for West Haven officials to have?
Yeah, I can, assignment of our fleet, is that what you're like, Mr. White?
Yeah, for the one effect, that it's commonplace for folks to have cars to be used on official business. And,
Yeah, I can send you the fleet assignment.
What they were. Okay, thank you. Because the other thing was there was some kind of budget or something passed at the last meeting. There was a list of cars to be replaced, all 2012. And they had numbers next to them, which were, I think, in the 40s or something. And I asked a little bit about them. They said, oh, no, that's going to be changed. Why? What was going to be changed on it, and why is it being changed?
I'm not sure exactly which cars we're speaking there.
no.
So
In our
Yeah.
capital
All
plan,
the things circulated to the MARB. There was
in the capital, okay.
I believe
Correct.
those are patrol cars. They'll be replaced
There were
with
some
Ford
were patrol
Explorers.
cars. Others
Yeah.
were
That-
I mean, $46,000 patrol cars. I don't know. It just
No,
we're gonna come talk
Crown
to you.
Victoria. There was a Crown Victoria, which didn't strike me as a patrol car.
Yeah, we have a habit of putting the car that's being replaced in that column just to kind of,
I know. You
what
don't
that-
know what it is that you're looking to purchase.
Yeah, and we can correct that. I can tell you that if we're buying a patrol car, if we're buying a city car, it is almost exclusively a Ford Explorer unless it needs to tow something. We've been buying Ford Explorers for several years. It is the common car. You will see patrol cars go from $45,000 to $65,000 this year, and that's just reflective of the market. And we'll be coming to see you about that shortly. Any other Ford Explorer that we would buy would be probably in the 51 to 55 range at this point in time. Again, the market, I'm sure you understand, a patrol car also involves outfitting and certain things that are not needed
Sure.
on a civic car.
Sure. All set, Mr. White?
For now.
Okay, Mr. Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I just have to lend my voice to my fellow board members, how disturbing and troubling this really is. It is really quite shocking that after all we've been through and all West Haven has been through, that here we are again with this kind of situation. It's really very hard to understand how this happens. And I haven't heard any explanation that really satisfies me, and I don't suspect any explanation we've heard has satisfied any of the other board members. You know, it's troubling on so many different levels. One, you know that contracts over 50,000 need to come to MARB, and of all the contracts that would be where this ought to come first to mind, you would think if you're buying a vehicle for the mayor's office, that would, you know, be the first thing that people would think of. And then you layer on top of the fact that you didn't even follow your own purchasing procedures in this. You know, you didn't go out to bid, you didn't buy off a state contract. You know, this just violates everything from, you know, beginning to end. It is really, really troubling. And I don't know what else we can do. I do think that either immediately or as soon as we have a financial manager in place, that there needs to be additional steps taken to make sure that the financial manager is monitoring on behalf of the MARB compliance with these things. I think, you know, we could start by, you know, every check run, your system needs to spit out a report that automatically goes to OPM or automatically goes to the finance manager of every single check that's being cut, highlights those that are over 50,000 so that the financial manager can, you know, look into anything that, you know, looks like there may be some question as to whether or not it, you know, was done properly. And just finally, you know, I would also think, you know, here we are in 2023 and with all the concern, you know, over, you know, green technology and global warming and climate change, you would really think that the mayor's office would be, you know, sort of leading the charge and not buying. I'm not sure if this is a police interceptor Ford Explorer or just a commercial Ford Explorer, but either case, it's a car that's presumably getting something like, you know, 12 miles to the gallon or something like that. And, you know, wouldn't you think that in this day and age that, you know, the city would want to, you know, kind of take the lead on operating with vehicles that are more fuel efficient. And so I don't know. I look at this from beginning to end, and I think this is really just not the way to do business. Very disappointed.
I have one more request, and that is, I would like to have a list of everybody who is authorized to sign off on purchases. Rick, can you provide that?
I can.
So there's two areas. One is, and I think I already knew the answer to who approves checks. It was always three people. In the past, it was the finance director, the treasurer, and the mayor. Is that the only people that can sign off on checks?
Kim, I can
Yes.
sign off on checks, but only if.
But I know you only do it in an emergency.
No, it's not, it's if the finance director or the treasurer cannot sign the check, then that's the only way I get to sign the check. And it's
But there-
only have small amount of time.
And there's only 3 signatures
Correct.
on the bank account.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I would like a list of everybody who is authorized to sign contracts.
So Kim, the first request, I just want to make sure, are you looking for a list of people who are approving a purchase or
Yep.
approving a contract? Because there's different levels. If the
Both.
department head wants to approve a purchase, it has to go through a
Give it all.
process.
Give it all.
Okay, I'll give it all. Yep.
Give it all to you.
Okay,
Thank you.
welcome.
All right.
Kim,
Any
I've got
other?
one
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
you guys see the report that, once we did this, we kind of just went back and self-audited ourselves and looked at the other purchases over 50,000.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. I just was looking for a little bit of clarification first on the, you can see the public works projects there, the paving. This was these are bonded paving jobs that were done through our city, contracted vendor. They were in our capital plan. I just want to know if paving projects, just for clarification, need to come before your board in the future.
We didn't, in our procedures, in our policy procedures, this board did the only item of any contract that was greater than 50,000 that was not that did not have to come forth was utilities. Like if it was more than 1 year of utilities and paying your utility bill. Now, if you were retrofit doing a big improvement, that's entirely different. I'm talking standard utilities. That was the only item within the list of contracts that we called out. Other than that, we were to see anything greater than 50. So even if it's on a capital list, and yes, we get to see your capital list and the improvement, it's entirely different when it's sitting on it's budget versus contract, as you know.
Right.
So
Right.
we want to see the contracts.
Great. So we can bring those to you.
Thank
So I can bring you our paving contract with a blanket purchase order and we can
Okay.
count that. Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.
So
I would,
will say, we did audit every expenditure back to when the city became tier 4.
thank you.
And these are what there were, 11 items over the period. No excuse for the more recent ones, unfortunately, but we appreciate the clarity on the paving.
I would suggest for the full MARB, bring this list forward. I'm not prepared to be able to say, I mean, I know it's already done, the work is done, and the contracts went out, but I still think that we need to see the backup for these contracts.
Okay.
Very good. The last 2 items on there, I know, sorry, Rick.
Good.
The last 2 items on there were emergency expenditures, and as you know, we brought the Chestnut Street emergency before the MARB in a time, I believe, a timely fashion. Unfortunately, these were not. That is our intention from this day forward. If we have an emergency, to quickly alert you to these items.
Thank you. I don't know whose hand went first, so I'm going to go with Stephen first.
Yeah, so getting back to the car. So there was a $50,000 purchase, which didn't come to the MARB. You also didn't go out to bid on this. Is that what I heard? If I remember correctly, we're supposed to have 3 bids. I mean, there's other 4 dealerships besides the one you bought it from. Did you go through that proper process? Was that handled that way, or was this just bought without a bid?
It was not handled that way. No, I was not again involved in the actual purchasing, so I did not ask for a bid or do anything like that. My result was the car was brought to me and that's what happened. So
And
no,
Mr. Esposito was the one that, is that what you said? He went and looked at the car? Was that-
Mr. Esposito was the one, yes, he did go and he looked at the car and, yes.
He
and
signed the
you should-
contract.
Yeah, I was gonna say you should have the paperwork. I
yeah.
think everybody did. So you should have everything that all of us here have.
I did ask him about that. Obviously, there's no formal process that wasn't documented. Again, should have been done. However, I do know that he did contact several dealers about the availability of a car. And basically, this was it for.
Okay. Again, not, so far, 2 processes were not followed properly, right? That's just on the car. And is Mr. Esposito the same person that stood in front of the MARB and said we didn't have a credit card problem also? Is that the one? He was in charge of the credit cards? And then we
Yes.
found out we had it, and then we found out we had a credit card problem, though we told the MARB that there wasn't a credit. That's the same person?
Well, let me be clear. There wasn't really a credit card problem. The press reported that, not us.
Oh, so
But
that was
because,
fictitious?
can I finish, please?
Sure.
And so what happened was Mr. Esposito took care of the credit card actually for several years without any dollars, anything missing, any problems, any false things. He was definitely. So once this blew up again in the news, we went with P cards, which is much safer, much better, more checks and balances. And that's what we're using right now and we'll continue to use.
I'm glad. That's great to hear. That's great to hear. Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate that very much. Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Mr. White.
Yes, thank you. Mayor, you said something that caught my attention, that it was commonplace that the mayor and maybe others get cars, cars owned by the city for their use, which I take it is official use and, reasonable personal use. Could you provide a list of, number one, the people that it's commonplace to get cars and have cars? I think I'd asked that before. And secondly, if there are any other perks that are commonplace for officials to get, so we know. I mean, obviously, I think you can understand why that's important. And we can spend a lot of money on policies and procedures, but if people are going to do what they've always done, then, it's going to continue. We always get explorers from Branford. So I'd like to see that list. So, let's be transparent about it.
Okay, I will check with Bob Orifice. As I said, he is the supervisor. He will be happy to give us a list. As far as any perks from the mayor's office, we get very few. We follow, elected follows a small amount of the 1103 contract. And the small amount is, one of the things is car allowance. And that elected officials, the only one that has a car allowance, there's only 2 elected officials other than the council, and that's myself and our clerk. The clerk does not get a car allowance. The mayor does get a car allowance. And that's why we do have the car. We are allowed retirement, car allowance. And I think there's one other thing. It is not, as I said, we do not get raises when the union gets raises. The only time you can get a raise is at the beginning of your term. So those are the only.
And what about the, Mayor, what about the council? Do they get perks? And what's the source?
Well, they don't, I wouldn't say they get perks. What they get is they get a lot of hassle. I know that because I was on the council for 10 years, but they get a small stipend. I have a council member here with me. Is it still around $200?
Yeah,
Colleen?
after taxes, it's $185. And then a month.
A month.
And then after fundraisers and everything else, it ends up being minus 20.
Yeah, Colleen's in the, she's one of our council members. But that's what the council gets. They don't get any perks, like they don't get a car allowance. They don't get anything like that. They're part-time elected, if you will. And so they only get that, and that's it.
So why don't we provide a list?
No, we can provide a list, but he has.
And same with department heads. Again, it's a matter of transparency. And I certainly respect people who give up their personal lives for $185 less expenses. And I hope other people are willing to serve the public. And I think we all ought to join in making sure that the public has faith in the institution. And things like this, $50,000 cars, undercut it. I think you understand the point. So if we could find out what perks, and I don't mean that in a bad way, like car allowances, tuition reimbursement, whatever it may be for elected officials, for department heads, and for council people, that would be helpful. And if there's nothing, there's nothing. But
what I also can provide, as I said, there was a resolution that's been drawn up and edited throughout the years, and it does say what appointed, because there's a difference. I'm not appointed, I'm elected. So as I said, there's only 2 elected full-time. But the appointed people get different benefits. So I'll be happy to give you that resolution too. We'll get you a copy of that resolution that has been updated. They get a lot more than the elected people. And I do agree with you. When I was on the council, it was the same amount of money. It hasn't really increased. And one other thing I do want to add, the Board of Education elected seats, they don't get anything as far as I know, right? I have Matt Cavaliero here, so you can back me up on that. They don't get any money or anything for their service. They serve to volunteer for free.
Like Mr. White.
Yes, like all of you.
Mr. Hamilton.
Yeah, Mr. White's questions just prompted me to think of some additional things. The IRS has some pretty complex, convoluted, hard to administer rules around the tax treatment of use of vehicles. And so part of it depends on whether or not you allow an employee to just commute back and forth. Obviously, you can use the vehicle for business purposes, and that's non-taxable. But if you're using it to commute back and forth to your home, then that commuting use becomes a taxable event. But there's certain treatment that can be afforded if that's all you're using, if that's the exclusive personal use is just commuting. But then if you allow the vehicle to be used for other personal use, like somebody's going to use it to go to the grocery store or go on vacation with it, then that becomes a different treatment for IRS purposes. If I remember correctly, I think that there are different rules than in place for uniform personnel. So if your police chief or your fire chief has a vehicle, I think the rules are somewhat different for them. So it all prompts in my mind that we really need to know that West Haven is properly complying with the IRS rules with respect to any vehicles that are being taken home by any officials in West Haven or being used for any personal use. And the city should have a written policy that really outlines all this as well. So I'd like to know if West Haven has a written vehicle use policy. If so, I think we should get a copy of that. And I'd like to see documentation relative to their compliance with the IRS requirements with respect to these vehicles.
Okay, and just so that you do know, historically, as far as I know, any of the other mayors or anybody who took the car, the only one that can take the car, 24/7 is the mayor in the city. So that being said, I'll be happy to have a lawyer look into the IRS part. But when you were here, Mr. Hamilton, as finance director, do you know if the IRS was involved with, because the same policy was there back then too. The mayor has always been allowed to take the car home and to use it personally, not to go on vacation or stuff like that, but to use it personally because I am on call 24/7. So if there is an emergency and I'm someplace else, I have to leave where I am to come. And that's what they explained to me in the beginning. So I will be more than happy to look into all of that. I just want that, everyone gets treated the same way. And I've always believed in that, fair treatment of everyone. So whether it changes it, we'll find out, but I'll be more than happy to have Attorney Tiernan, if he doesn't know, if he will get a lawyer, an IRS specialist preferably, to look into that.
Good, thank you. Mr. Falsigno.
Yeah.
And I want to be conscious of time because we're at
Yeah,
12:20.
very
And thank you.
The issue with the car.
And we do have a labor contract.
Right. So the issue with the car, and I don't begrudge you a
Non-labor.
car at all. I understand that you should have a car. You're the mayor, you should have a car, and you're on call 24 hours. But what's happened here because of the car, it's opened up questions for a plethora of other items that now you have to spend time and man hours to go and get. So now we're throwing more stuff at you because there's a level of comfort that we do not have. And that is something I think really needs to be corrected, and corrected quickly, or you're not going to you're going to be spending less and less time concentrating on fixing West Haven and fixing your financial issues that you have and governing the city of West Haven. You're going to spend more time digging up things that you shouldn't have to dig up information on.
Agree.
All right. These are all policies and procedures. These are all just, should just be, there should be an innate sense of how to handle things like this. And to have us have to ask all these questions and draw all these suppositions about different issues, and it's just it becomes a waste of time, and you get you get barred down in the minutia of all this, and one thing leads to another, and it just takes too much of your time. It's just so much easier if you have policies and procedures that have already been given to you, and we've already been talking about for years, that you just follow them. No one says you shouldn't have a car. Just follow the policies and procedures. I know there's whatever the reasons are, and I heard them, that it didn't happen, but this is just one of many issues that have happened over the last few years, and it just continues to erode with the faith that I believe the subcommittee and the MARB itself has in things that are going on. I know you have new people, and I'm really very, again, impressed with Mr. Taylor. I think everybody seems to have a pretty good handle on what's going forward, so let's go forward. But I just don't want to see you waste a lot of time on things that you shouldn't have to waste time on.
No, I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. It will waste time, but I'm here every weekend anyway, so I'll still continue that. Right, David? Him and I, that's my weekend partner.
But also, I was hoping that even when we got to the tier 4, that the administration that was already in place already understood, and that nothing would have been circumvented. And so I am not pointing fingers at this moment. I just know that a process was not followed, and that continues to be very disturbing for all of us, and that it needs to be the top priority. Like, everybody should know, did that get to the MARB? Everybody. I'm going to move on to the next agenda item so that we can move forward. I'm not prepared to take action on any of these contracts. I don't think any of the MARB members want to do that unless I hear differently. We're looking for the backup information that goes with these, even though we did not approve them. I'm not sure we want to approve them, but again, we don't have the backup to even take it into consideration. And so I'm going to pass on that, and we will bring it up again at the full MARB.
Sorry, Kim, are you talking about the Beach
Maybe.
Street
Yeah.
contract?
No, I'm talking about all the list that you provided us. We're still on the 50.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Nope, you're fine. Nope. Now I'm ready to move to exactly what you're talking about, Rick. Thank you.
No worries.
And that is discussion and possible action of non-labor contracts. And then that is with Landon Industries, and it's a construction of Beach Street Railway improvement. It's phase number 2. We distributed that information within this packet today, and the contract is between the city and Landon, and it's for improvements of approximately $4.8 million for a term of 240 days, and that is to start on the 11th day after the contract is executed. Rick, can you please tell us
Sure.
about this contract?
Sure. This is the construction phase of the project that we approved the design phase for at the last MARB meeting. This was bid in the beginning of March. Bids were received March 21st. 6 bids were received. You can see the tally sheet. Most of the bids were right in line. There was one higher than most, but Layden Industries was the low bidder. They came in about $500,000 below our budget, so we are on budget for that project. We do have a term of 240 days, and this is a continuation of Beach Street road raising that happened from April Street to just past the water pollution, Monahan Place to just to past the water pollution plant. This will extend it from water pollution to Morris Avenue. And then we will look at phase 3. So this has been broken down into 3 phases. This is phase 2 of construction.
Any questions? Mr. Falsigno, your hand is up. Do you have a question?
No, sorry. I'll take it down. I apologize.
That's fine. Any questions? Can I get a motion? Oh. I thought, Andrea, you were going to ask a question.
I was just, is there are the principles the same in Layden Industries and Elm City Materials?
Yes, they are. I apologize. Yes. Same company. Elm City Materials is just another name for another DBA for Layden Industries, a subset of Layden Industries.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I was just asking because I saw that they were, a number of the unreported expenditures was to Elm City. And so just pairing that with their being.
Right.
Elm City is connected with Landon, is what you're saying?
It's Layden.
Layden, yes.
Okay. So describe the relationship.
I don't know the exact the breakdown, how it's broken. My understanding is that Elm City Materials is a subdivision of Layden Industries. Okay. But I don't know the exact.
Neither are related to us.
Yeah, neither are related to us. We have our ethics disclosure form with Elm City Materials for our contract of paving and sidewalks. And we also have our non-collusion affidavit with this contract as well, so.
Okay. Mr. Hamilton.
Can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Tom, we can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Can you
There
hear
you
me
are.
now?
Yes,
Sorry.
I can. You're
So
fine.
I just wanted to ask the question that Mr. White normally asks, which is there any relationship between any of the principals in this in Layden Industries and anyone in West
There
Haven?
is not.
Okay,
There is not.
thank you.
Any other
I'll
que-
actually I'll make a motion to approve this contract with Layden Industries.
Okay. How about a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Stephen. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? All right. Motion carries. This will go on to the full MARB for full approval. Okay. I wanted to start putting them to subcommittee in case the materials weren't complete, because that's what was
Yeah,
happening when
that's-
we got to the full MARB. So I wanted to start flushing them through the committee so that this way, when we get there, there's a package, it's complete, and we've at least already vetted it.
I appreciate that, Kim. Thank you. And Simon's been great with that as well. Appreciate
Okay.
that.
No problem. Thank you, Rick. We have a number of items still here, and to me, none of them are pressing unless you have like something that you want to talk about on bringing up on the open items list that could have been resolved that we can take off. We will look at it again at the full MARB. Our process is going to be everything will go on the open items list as an open item. As it gets closed, if it gets closed at the subcommittee, I'm still going to leave it on there because it could have been a question that came from the full MARB. And so I want them to see that we're considering it closed should they want to look at it again. And then we'll do the two-part. Once that's through, we'll then take it off. Okay?
Great.
Does that work, Rick?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything you want to bring to our attention? And anything in the next two agenda items? Otherwise, I would like to touch on those items at another meeting.
I have nothing pressing on this list. Earth-shattering news.
Okay, thank you. And what about on the corrective action plans that are there for HR, staffing, IT, purchasing? And we did update the corrective action plan to include the audit that was just provided with with the auditor's findings. We added that to it to the report. If Simon hasn't shared that with you, we'll get that over to you so that you can then give us start to work on corrective action plans for the new findings. Okay, David?
Did you use the one that I supplied? Sorry, I didn't get that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I thought Simon did an update. I didn't know you supplied one. So we'll work through the administrative side of it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yep. All right.
And apologies, I might not have supplied it to Simon. So.
Yeah,
I
I don't think so. So I had Simon update it.
Okay, I'll compare.
Yep. And I can have him send ours.
Beautiful.
All right. I am going to since all the other materials are included in here for everybody's leisure to look at, I'd like to move to the last agenda and look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. White. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Stephen. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Go UConn.
You don't get a vote.
Oh, yes, definitely go UConn. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.